Joining us now, NewsNation political contributor Dr. Lauren Wright, political scientist at Princeton University. As we get set to listen to both of these hearings, let's start with Susan Menares, Dr. Menares. She claims that pressure to pre-approve the vaccine recommendations from the new CDC Vaccine Advisory Panel happened without reviewing scientific evidence. The larger implications here about vaccine recommendations, trust in our nation's health issues, we've really got a he said, she said moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually really want to see what comes out of this hearing, Marni, because it is actually, unlike the FBI director hearing with Kash Patel and all of that embarrassing back and forth, somewhere where we have physicians on this committee that will be questioning her on both sides of the aisle that are either skeptical of the CDC and the HHS, understandably so, or skeptical of Kennedy and his approach. And I do think we'll get a fairer conversation, and it's a really important topic. You know, RFK Jr.'s point is that trust in these agencies is at an all-time low post-COVID. He's absolutely right. They did a lot of things wrong. They lost the trust of the American public. But now it's just completely along partisan lines, whether you think any of these directors, whether they have a science background or not, are trustworthy. And so he says the approach to that is to sort of clean house with that vaccine advisory board, re-look at all of the standards. And the politics of it are actually very simple. He can fire someone. And all of these people, for the most part, are political appointees that we're talking about that are in these hot seats. So whether you like it or not, we know why the agency was shaped into the form it has been with RFK at the head. But I'm really hoping for a productive conversation.
Yeah, me too. And we'll be listening into that live here momentarily. In the meantime, we've got Kash Patel, and boy, did things get heated between the director and several Democratic senators in day one of his testimony. A big focus today will likely be the Epstein files and why hasn't the FBI released the full client list, which he, not too long ago said that he supported.
You know, this was just so embarrassing, honestly, for both the Senate as an institution and the FBI. I mean, these hearings should start with an apology, both from senators and from Kash Patel. This is no way to display the function of government for the American public. It's completely irresponsible for the conversation to devolve into a shouting match. It's exactly the worst example of what I want my students to see, of what voters want to see, because most people are much more reasonable than this. People can more easily talk about politics in a difficult way than our elected and appointed representatives at the top of government. And so, the most effective way, if you do want to sort of dunk on the opposite party, is to stay calm, make your case, and it should be fact-based, and then let the other side look crazy. But they both totally took the bait. And, I'm pretty ashamed of these bodies. I really hope we don't see the same thing today, but it looks like they got a lot of attention and they might do the same exact thing, Marni. I'm really disappointed.
How about Kash Patel's leadership since taking office? The personnel changes, some of the criticism that he has gotten over the apprehension of the suspect in the early hours of the Charlie Kirk assassination. How do you expect that to play out and be handled today?
Well, again, those are very fair questions, but he also got the job fair and square. President Trump gets to choose who he wants. And if people think that's a loyalist who's unqualified, it may be so, but that's still the director of the FBI. And so, I don't think he's doing himself any favors by turning this into a political show business type display. But the senators are notorious for doing this too. And they ought to respect the head of an independent agency. And there are ways to ask those very reasonable questions you just cited, Marni, without it devolving into a childish shouting match. And that's kind of what I'm upset about, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it is unfortunate. And I do agree with you. I think, we've got to maintain some composure and patience, even in the tough moments, right? That's be better. I'm curious, Lauren, the conversations you're having with your students, given sort of the heated political environment that we're in right now, what are their thoughts?
Well, I'm actually writing a book about the lack of intellectual diversity on college campuses right now. So I'm interviewing a ton of students and faculty. And, one of the things I talk to my colleagues a lot about, and, the leading expert on this is Sean Westwood at Dartmouth. He's one of my close colleagues. And his research shows the American public abhors violence. They don't support it. They don't want to see these sort of political clashes, but the leaders need to set the example. And so if you see students clashing on these political issues that don't know how to talk to the other side, the way they learn that is unfortunately from some faculty who set bad examples, but it's from our political leaders too. They need to set the example from the top, and they don't. They set the worst example. They make it look like it's just about dominating the other person, silencing the other view, calling them names. And that's no way to get things done, especially if you're a student, as mine are, who want to change the world. They care deeply about the issues they talk to me about, but they must learn what the other side thinks. It's absolutely critical, and there's not a lot of that happening right now.
Yeah, and listen to what the other side is saying and do so
Yes.
respectfully. Dr. Wright, always a pleasure. Thank you. We'll be listening to
Thanks,
both of these
Marni.
hearings, and we'll be taking your comments to heart as we do so.